Welcome back. College Football Thursday video on a Wednesday. Tomorrow's a holiday. Come on. I'm not going to put out a video on a holiday. Come on. You just be lucky that I'm putting a video out early, day before, because still a lot to talk about in college football. More job openings coming open. Looks like less candidates. The big games this week. Rivalry week. I can't even talk. Let's get into it. Like I said before, you'll see from the title of this video what the main game of the week is, in my opinion. I think it's the biggest game. There's another big game in the Big 12, but we'll talk about the games later. To start out, Dan Mullen out at Florida after being 5-6 this year. I didn't agree with that. I think Dan Mullen's a good coach. I didn't agree with firing him. I know recruiting, he's not been as hardcore in recruiting as they've wanted, and we've seen if you're not consistently averaging top 3 recruiting, you're not winning national titles. But I mean, so look, they felt like it was a way to move on. His buyout was $12 million. Pay him $12 million, get him out of there. Now it opens up, I think, another Tier 1 job in college football, Florida. I think USC, LSU, Florida, now those 3 being open, those are top tier programs in my opinion. I feel like if you go to those schools, you can win a national championship. I thought Dan Mullen would get them there. They didn't. This is an interesting photo that I saw. Fox tweeted it, Facebook, whatever. I don't fucking know. It's how long head coaches took to win a national title at their school, or how many years it took them to win before they won a national title. Bob Stoops took him 2 years at Oklahoma before he got his first national title. Larry Coker at Miami took him 1 year. That was Butch Davis's team. He kind of just came in and took it over. Jim Tressel at Ohio State took 2 years. Pete Carroll took 4. Nick Saban it took 4 at LSU. They don't have him for Alabama. I think it was 3. I think it was 3 for him at Alabama. Mack Brown at Texas was 8. Urban Meyer at Florida was 2. Les Miles at LSU was 3. Gene Chizik at Auburn was 2. Jimbo Fisher was 4 at Florida State. Dabo it took 8, and Ed Orgeron it took 3. So it's looking like historically, if you're not winning in your first, for majority other than Dabo, Mack Brown, if you're not winning in your 3rd or 4th year, you might not win a national title. And that, I think, is going to reflect on, you look at coaches like Ryan Day now. I think this is his 3rd year, 3rd or 4th year, I want to say. I think this is his 3rd year. So you look at that, is he close to winning it? And if he doesn't, will he win it? Especially at a team like Ohio State. It took Urban 3 to 4 years when he got to Ohio State to win. I wish they had those stats. I could look it up, but that would take a while. But I just thought it was interesting because you look at like Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, hasn't won in 7 years being there. This year could, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We'll talk about that later. Notre Dame with Brian Kelly's been there 11, 12 years. He's not winning a national title there. I've always thought with Brian Kelly and Jim Harbaugh, it'll be the guy after that wins the national title if they do win it. Just because I just think it'll be a different change of pace. Those guys will come in and win it compared to those. But I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting stat to talk about. But like I said, you have these now big 3 jobs, and the candidates are slowly just dwindling down. James Franklin just signed a 10-year extension with Penn State. I thought James Franklin should have left. He's been there a while. He's another one of those guys. Been there a while, hasn't won. Probably. I mean, he's recruited better than Michigan has, and has beat Ohio State unlike Michigan has the last few years. But it's winning a national title? I don't know. I don't know. Luke Fickell looks like he's going to stay at Cincy, signing a, I think, reported deal. It hasn't been official from what I saw. James Franklin's is official. This is what a lot of these coaches are going to do. They're going to use the open options to get more money at the school that they're at. We've seen this with Mel Tucker, not official his deal, but the $95 million. I want to say, I feel like James Franklin's is probably around $70 to $80 million, probably in that range. So, I mean, this is what a lot of coaches are going to do. They're going to use those jobs to get more money at the school that they're at because they like. I believe that if Penn State would have been open, I think Fickell would have went to Penn State. That's what I truly believe. And with that job not being open now, I think he kind of looked at it and was like, okay, I'll stay at Cincinnati, give it 2 or 3 years. They'll be in the Big 12 anyways. And then you'll be a Power 5. And now they're in the top 4, which will segue into, that's a great segue, by the way. Now we'll segue into that. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to say, that noise, this is what I had to do. I had to go and buy my own battery. Okay, I don't even live here full time, right? I'm only here on the weekends. This week I'm here a little bit longer because of the holiday. In a couple weeks I'll be back for like a month for school, but I don't even live here normally, right? And I had to go buy a battery for this place? Are you kidding me? Come on. I mean, I get it, like, but I shouldn't have to be doing this shit on my own, right? Like, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm not, but come on. I'm not a full-time liver at this house, right? The parents always give you the excuse, like, they pay for it, they pay for the food, give you a roof over your head. What, you could have bought a battery at least, right? Like, come on. Come on now. I mean, people are going to probably chirp me for that, but that's just what I truly believe. I mean, gosh, God forbid I had to go buy my own battery. Like, come on. Jeez. What's the next thing I'm going to do? Start paying for it too? Come on. I mean, come on. Yeah, like I said earlier, Cincinnati's now in the top 4. They're number 4. It's the first non-Power 5 team to be in the top 4. I think it's a little monumental because I really thought deep down in my gut, I thought they would have Michigan. If Cincinnati wouldn't have blown out SMU like they did last week, I think Michigan would have jumped them for 4. I think they would have had a top 4 matchup going into the game this week. But Cincinnati looked really good, and they've been undefeated. They were undefeated last year, so they've had the consistency. So put them in the top 4. I'm all for it. But there's still a lot of football left to play, right? Like, Georgia and Alabama are going to play next week. Ohio State, Michigan play this week. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma play this week. This is what I believe. I think we're slowly getting the answers for who's going to get in and how this thing's going to work. Big Ten winner, I think, gets in. They'll have a one-loss Big Ten winner if it's on the East side. I don't think Wisconsin. I think if you win, whoever wins the East, whoever wins at Ohio State, Michigan wins the Big Ten. So Big Ten one-loss winner gets in. Let me write that down. The SEC winner gets in. If Alabama beats Georgia, they're in. Georgia beats Alabama, they're in. Georgia is in, win or lose. Even if Georgia loses, they're in. And I think this is what happens if Alabama loses 2 losses. I think they're out. The Big 12 team with 1 loss, Big 12 champion 1 loss, I think gets in. That's either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. I think they get in over Notre Dame. Look, I'm a Notre Dame fan. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, let's make the playoff. I don't want them in the playoff. They're not very good this year, right? It's like, oh, Caleb, you're 10-1. Should be 11-1. They should beat Samford. I don't want them in the playoff because they're not very good this year. I'm one of those guys that's like, I don't want to be in the fight if I know I'm going to get my ass kicked. I'm one of those guys. That is this Notre Dame team. They're young in a lot of facets. And honestly, I don't want to see Jack Cohen, a statued fuck, in a playoff against a Georgia or an Ohio State. It won't be very fun. Now, I think the next 2 years with Notre Dame, I think we're going to be really good. We're young. A lot of young guys are playing. I think we're going to be really good the next 2 years. I don't want them in the playoff this year. If they make the playoff, I will not be happy about it. So, for that being said, I am a big Alabama fan right now, and I'm a big Oklahoma State fan. Because I do not want Notre Dame in the playoff to have to get dominated by a team. They're not ready yet for this. Like, I get it, like, you want to make the playoff, but I'm also tired of making the playoff and getting our ass kicked, because the more times you get in the playoff and you get your ass kicked, the less likely they're going to be looking at you for the playoff when you are really good. So that's where I'm at with it. And people are going to call me crazy as a Notre Dame fan, like, you don't want your team in the playoff? I don't, because I would much rather have an Oklahoma State team in who's never been in, because I don't know what they look like, or frankly, Alabama or Cincinnati in open. Like, Cincinnati beat us, and I'm not saying Alabama with 2 losses, but if Alabama beats Georgia and it kind of stays, the top 4 stays the way it is, I'm fine with that. Like, that's what I'm rooting for. Like, I'd much rather have Cincinnati in over us, blah, 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 and all that. I do not want Notre Dame in. And I'm not saying if Cincinnati wins out and the top 4 kind of stays the same, that Notre Dame would be in over Cincinnati. They wouldn't. But that's what I'm saying. I do not want Notre Dame in the playoff. I don't. And that's coming from a Notre Dame fan. And it's like, I just don't. If it happens, it happens. I'm not going to be, like, glad to watch it, but I just don't think this team has it this year. I just don't. They don't have it this year. I just don't. There's not enough firepower on offense. I don't trust Jack Cohen. And look, 11-1, great season, really good season. But because I thought this team would be 8-4, 9-3. The schedule kind of worked out in their favor to be pretty easy. Now they've gotten better, but it's one of those things. It's like, this team's just not up par yet. I'd much rather go to New Year's Six Bowl and potentially win that game than go to a playoff and get destroyed. You can call me an idiot, you can call me a hater, you can chirp at me all you want, but that's just my feeling of it. That's just how I am. I think there's better teams than them out there, and just because the standings kind of worked out the way it did and the schedule kind of worked out the way it did, I mean, ended up being 10-1, potentially 11-1. But, you know, I just don't think that it's a playoff-worthy team, in my opinion. And that's coming from a Notre Dame fan. So, look, you can chirp at me all you want. Whatever. All right, big games this week. There's a lot of big games. You know, it's technically rivalry week. I can't even say that fucking word. I can't talk. You know, but a lot of these games have kind of been blown up because a lot of these teams are not as good as they usually are. And there's a lot of games I could go through, but I kind of just went through the bigger games that I thought were, you know, bigger, potentially, you know, closer, I can't even talk. Closer record-wise teams. Like, some rivalry games this week, it's like Alabama-Auburn, Alabama should win. You know what I mean? It's like games like that. But we do still have, I think, about 5 good ones. Number 9, Ole Miss, 9-2. I was surprised they were number 9 in the country. They jumped up big time. They go to Mississippi State to play their in-state rival. Mississippi State 7-4. They are a 2-point favorite. I'm going to stick with Lane here, Lane Train. It's the Egg Bowl, right? It's one of those. It's a big game in the state of Mississippi in the South. You know, so it's one of those games where Mississippi State's been really good. You could see them playing, you know, better and potentially winning it. But I just think Lane in that offense has too much firepower. They're playing way better than I thought they'd play down the stretch. And, you know, like I said, Lane Train. I've been on it all year. I will be on it forever. I think they get the win against Mississippi State. All right. Penn State travels to East Lansing to battle number 12 MSU, who's 9-2. MSU's coming off one of the worst losses ever. They got fucking completely dominated last week. It was embarrassing to watch as a student there. And it was like, I think I posted something on Twitter, it was like $95 million is a lot for a funeral. Because it's like, you potentially going to pay Mel Tucker $95 million, and you think that paying a coach is going to automatically close the gap against Ohio State. Is not. And clearly that game proved that just paying a coach a lot is not. They were not ready to play. The matchup was terrible. And they have a lot of work to do than just, you know, winning 9 games, winning 10 games. I believe Penn State beats them this week. I've believed that Penn State would beat MSU from the start of the season. And as the season's progressed, I think MSU finishes 9-3, has had a really good year, but it's kind of lost momentum a little bit. I think coming off that loss last week, it's kind of a shell shock to them, and I don't know how they'll respond to it. So I think, and Penn State really doesn't have the distractions anymore. Like, is Jay Franklin leaving or not? He has the security of his stand, so I think that helps him. I think Penn State wins. Penn State's a 1-point favorite, so it's going to be a really close game, but I just think Penn State wins it. Number 14, Wisconsin, who is 8-3, 7-point favorites as they travel to Minnesota, who is 7-4. Wisconsin wins this. They're in the Big Ten Championship. They've played way better down the stretch of the year compared to when they played Notre Dame and when they played Michigan, where they both got destroyed. I think Wisconsin wins this game. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. It could be low scoring. I think Wisconsin sets themselves up to play clearly in Michigan or Ohio State. And as the season, you know, they've played really well. Their running back has like over 1,000 yards in 7 games. They've played very well down the stretch, but I think they're setting themselves up to lose in the Big Ten title game. I think, what I think is pretty much this week, I think is the Big Ten title game against Ohio State, Michigan, and I'll talk about that game, last game I'll talk about here. That's just truly what I believe. I think this is the Big Ten title game. Everything's on the table. It's the biggest game of the week. Potentially the biggest game of the year, other than Alabama, Georgia, in my opinion. So, like I said, for this Wisconsin-Minnesota game, I think Wisconsin wins. Now, this is a kind of a sneaky big game, in my opinion. It's like, because both teams are 10-1, kind of been under the radar. Oklahoma's not as highly ranked as they have been, right? They got that one loss against Baylor. They are number 10. They travel to number 7, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a 4-point favorite. This is one of those games. I had this last week, right? With my picks of, like, I told you, Clemson gut feeling, I thought Clemson won it, but I wanted Wake to win it, and I was wrong. My gut was right, and my voice, my mind were idiotic and in the way I thought. This is one of those games where my gut says go with Oklahoma. They're proven. They've been there. But I think Oklahoma State is a better team than them this year, and I think they're playing better football. They have a really good defense. I think it's the best defense Oklahoma will see all year. And I think Oklahoma State wins it. And if Oklahoma wins, they have to play again next week in the Big 12 championship. So I think Oklahoma State has that on their minds. Like, look, let's beat them, and we don't have to play them again. We'll play Baylor next week. Okay, so I think that's just how it is. I think Oklahoma State wins. All right, now on to the game. It's what they call it, the game. I will be there. You're gonna ask yourself, Caleb, you're a Notre Dame fan. You go to Michigan State. What are you doing going to that game? Chirp me all you want. Chirp me. Look, I got offered to go to the game. I'm a football fan. I'm not going to pass up going to the biggest game in potentially Big Ten history. The biggest game in, I could argue, the biggest game in Michigan history, because, like, if Harbaugh wins this will be the biggest thing to happen for Michigan football in forever. Like, this is the game that it sets up a lot of things. Like, Ohio State jumped up to 2 in the rankings, right? So after they destroyed MSU, so now they're 2. Michigan's at 5, both 10-1. This game, like I said, I think this is the de facto Big Ten championship game. Whoever wins this wins the Big Ten championship, in my opinion. I just do. Now the storyline's going in the game. Can Harbaugh win the big game? Can he? He hasn't been able to do it yet. I think he's 0-7 against Ohio State. Can Michigan stop Ohio State's offense? Those wide receivers are dominant, right? Can Michigan score with Ohio State? Because Ohio State's going to score in this game. They've proved last week they're going to score. They have 3 wide receivers that are great. One, in my opinion, Chris Olave, I don't even know how you stop that guy. He's like Jesus out there playing football. Like, he's so much better than everybody else, I believe. And it's crazy. Ohio State is an 8-point favorite. I thought it would be about 10, but like I continue to say, a home team usually gets 3, so it's about 10. I think this game is a little bit more competitive than last week's Michigan State, Ohio State game. But I do think Ohio State wins, because I think Ohio State they have an offense I trust compared to Michigan's offense, right? Like, they've played well, but I do not really trust their offense kind of in the big situations, right? But I think it's very close, and then I think Ohio State kind of pulls away at the end. I think they win by 14. I'm excited for this game. I don't even have a rooting interest in this game, and I'm like super excited for it. Just to go, first, Ohio State-Michigan game, this is the biggest rivalry. My dad talked about how when he used to go to the games, when he was a Michigan fan, and it just means different. It's a different atmosphere than anything else. I am so excited for it. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day to watch football. I don't know. This is like, for a guy that's not even a fan of these two teams, I don't know. I'm just super excited. Like, as a football fan, I am so excited for this game. And I hope it's a good one, because I think, if Michigan wins, there's a lot of storylines to talk about. I won't be happy about it, because it means they're in the Big Ten championship game and probably in the playoff. But look, it's a lot of talking points, because I do believe if Michigan loses and maybe they lose by, say, 21 or more, I think we have that discussion. Like, okay, I think Michigan has that in discussion as well. It's like, okay, Harbaugh, can you do it, Jim? Like, is it just best maybe if you just leave, right? And I'm telling you, with that Bears job opening up, I'm telling you, I think that could be intriguing for him. If he can't beat Ohio State, I know Jim's not this type of guy to quit or like say, I can't do it. But if he cannot beat Ohio State with this team, it's like, are you ever going to do it, right? So I think if they lose and they lose badly, I think there's potential door open with the Bears job most likely being open. Does he go to Chicago and be like, okay, I couldn't do it there, but I'll do it here? I don't know. But it's very intriguing. Like I said, I'm super excited for the game this week. I'm not even a fan of either team. I hate Michigan with every passion, every bone in my body, but I'm excited to watch this football game. It is one of those games where it's like anything could fucking happen. I'm excited to go to it, and excited to see what the atmosphere is like. And I've been to Michigan a few times for games. Last time I was in Michigan, I fucking want to get that memory out of my mind. It's last time Notre Dame, Michigan played. It was not a fun game to watch. It was fun before the game, but during the game, it was not fun. It was pouring down rain, and we got our ass kicked. But it's a big stadium. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. The fans are going to be nuts. I'm excited for it. Like I said, I think Ohio State pulls it out, but I think it's fairly close, competitive. And then I think Ohio State, their offense is going to find their way to score. That's going to do it for this week's video. All these week's videos. Like I said, doing this video on Wednesday. Tomorrow's a holiday. Getting it out early. Next week it'll be back to Thursday. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, Jesus Christ. I just lost that pencil. This is how this show works. Thanks for watching, and yeah.